G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to my Battlegrounds preview for Season 18 of Battlegrounds. It's just the first 2 weeks I'm going to be going over today. I will do another video for weeks 3 to 4 just before week 3 starts, but today we're just going to be focusing on Victory Track and week 1 to 2 of the Gladiator circuit. So I'm going to be covering over what I think will be the best attackers, what I think will be the best defenders, and then also I'm going to show you guys what mastery setup I'm probably going to be running for the first 2 weeks of the season. So first, let's look at the nodes. So they did release the nodes last week. So the main node here is going to be Mutant Mastery. So we're going to have this node for the first 2 weeks. And it's going to be the entirety of the victory track as well. So whenever a mutant attacker applies a debuff to the defender, they have a 40% chance to gain an indefinite prowess buff, increasing special attack damage by 30%. The chance increases by 20% for each debuff on the defender. These prowess buffs are removed after the attacker finishes the special attack. So the important thing here to note is that they are prowess buffs, they're not prowess passives. Now the next node is power creeps. This is the exact same node for both track and circuit. So each time the defender purifies or cleanses a debuff, they gain a charge that permanently increases their combat power rate by 3%. This goes up to a maximum of 20 charges. So at a maximum, the defenders will be gaining 60% extra combat power rate. And then Tenacity, so on the victory track, it will be a 25% Tenacity, so 25% chance to purify debuffs, and then in the circuit, it will be a 50% chance to purify debuffs. And then also on the Gladiator circuit, there's also Ebb and Flow Knockdown, so the defender has protection, reducing all incoming damage by 60%, knocking down the defender removes the protection and grants the attacker a Fury passive, increasing attack rating by 40% for 12 seconds. This is a very common node in Alliance War as well, on Path 5. And once that Fury ends and the protection comes back, that any debuffs on the defender are purified. So I won't be talking too much about the Ebb and Flow. I'll be mostly focusing on Mutant Mastery, Power Creep, and Tenacity. So let's firstly just go over the attackers. The main thing we want from our mutants is debuffs, right? So there's obviously stunning is a great way to apply debuffs, but I think the best stackers this season will be mutants that can apply debuffs outside of stun, so other debuffs apart from stun. Now there's a lot of mutants that can do that. I think the MVP of this season is going to have to be Sunspot. Like, he applies so many incinerates on his basic attacks. You know, once he gets more than one solar flare state, he can get multiple incinerates per hit, and he'll just be able to stack up these prowess buffs so ridiculously much. If they don't, you can easily stack up the incinerators, and every hit is going to be just tons of permanent prowesses. So you probably it might not even need like a special one. You might just be able to go straight to special 2 and nuke, because these prowesses, they're not anything to sneeze at. They are 30% prowesses, so you can easily get at least 10 or 12 of these on your way to special 2, I'd say. So Sunspot is going to have to be the MVP of the season. He's probably been the MVP of Battlegrounds this year. Probably he's just been so good for so many of these Battleground seasons. So he has to be the MVP. If you have a Sunspot, just put him in your deck. He's just going to cook. I don't have a 7-star Sunspot, unfortunately. I'm not likely to rank up on a 6-star. But yeah, Sunspot definitely is going to be the GOAT. But not far behind, I don't think, is going to be Dust. Dust is another champion that can apply so many debuffs. Just from parrying, she can apply, obviously, the stun, but also her sand debuffs. And she can easily purify those into sand passives, and those basically have the same effect. So it's not like she loses anything when the debuffs get purified. Also, I didn't mention with Sunspot, if his incinerators get purified, he does get power from those. So he does benefit from the purify as well, in a way. But yeah, with Dust, when her sand gets purified, it turns straight into a sand passive, and so she can turn those into prowess when she goes into a sandstorm, either with a special 3 or a heavy. So she's going to be able to stack up so much sand, get so much prowess. It's going to be ridiculous. Like, probably not as broken as Sunspot, but I still think she's going to be able to tear through so much stuff. If you've been fortunate enough, like me, to get a Dust from the Titan Crystal or some other way, she's gonna be really good for the season. I'm anticipating, so I can't wait to show you guys what she can do in Battlegrounds this season. I'm really excited. Then next up, I'm sort of going from strongest to weakest in a way, but I'm not going to talk about every single mutant. Toad is also going to be a really good one, so he can apply those poisons. They have a 70% chance to turn into passive poisons, I think, if they get purified. So, and he can easily apply those paralytic poisons, so he's going to be great for that. Not as good as the first two. Onslaught, of course, whenever his debuffs fail to apply or they get purified, they turn into passive. So if you try and put some Daunteds on, you can easily get Daunteds from just parrying. They can easily just turn into passive, so you don't really have to worry about Purify there. Apocalypse can just turn off Purify straight up, so he doesn't really have to worry about any purifying, and he can just stack up those debuffs. And if you keep parry having with Apocalypse, you keep stacking up those bleeds, you can easily just keep getting prowess after prowess after prowess, and go for like a massive special 2, which will have heaps of burst damage associated with it. So Apocalypse could be a really good attacker. He's typically a very, very, very slow attacker, but he could be all right this season. And then of course, I think they did time this very well with the Mr. Sinister buff. I think he's going to be really nice with this. I've just got mine at 6-star rank 1 so far, but he's going to be able to turn off, well, it's only skill champions that he does this to, but whenever skill champions purify debuff, he reduces the ability accuracy of purify abilities up to a negative 100%. So he's able to turn off purify eventually, but he can stack up heaps of degenerations on the opponent and giving himself bleeds. So he could be a sneaky good attacker there as well as an okay defender. Then we've also got Havoc. So Havoc is going to be a really interesting one, I think, because he can easily just get plasma build-ups on the opponent. Throw that special 1, you fast track your plasma, as you see here. Yeah, the special 1, it gets an overcharge passive, so you get heaps of plasma, and then once you stack up those plasma build-ups on the opponent, the debuffs, you can stack up up to 10 of those. So if they don't get purified, they get stuck there. And each time you try to apply more, that's basically a guaranteed prowess, right? So that could be really exciting. And then also, if the plasma buildup is removed here, see, due to a purify effect, the burst damage is almost tripled, I think. So it's going to be a lot of energy damage from purifying, which these defenders will be able to do. The next one is Archangel. So Archangel won't be the best. He'll still be good for. Because he can turn off Tenacity, right? Because when each bleed that he has does reduce the Tenacity chance by 25%. Where is it? Each bleed debuff on your opponent increases the chance of any poison by 25% and reduces the chance that an opponent's Purify abilities will trigger by the same. So I'm not sure if that counts for nodes as well, but I think it does. So he'll be pretty good. He won't really need the prowesses too much, but you could get a nice special 2 out of him. And the other thing is, I'm not sure if his neuros actually prevent him getting the prowesses. We'll have to test that out for sure. Another sort of left field option is Captain Britain. Not many people have this girl ranked up because she's not the absolute meta for sure. But she actually has some nice things when the opponent's purified. So when she's awakened, she gets a bulwark. But also, I think it's down here, Purification. Yeah. Whenever a debuff is purified off the opponent, you gain an indefinite passive prowess, increasing special damage by 10%, max of 25. So you can get a lot of those. And she also gets an additional buff if it's exhaustion, slow, or weakness, which are her debuffs. So she could be an okay option. Definitely not going to be as good as the other ones I've mentioned, I don't think. But it could be all right. Won't be any defender though. And then the last one I'll mention here in this category is Weapon X. So he's able to stack up so many bleeds. When he has at least 10 rage, it's basically a 100% chance to place bleeds. And then when debuffs are purified, you'll see... Yeah, where is it? This one, yep. Weapon X gains a rage charge each time he's struck. One of his abilities fails, triggered due to chance, or a debuff is purified off the opponent. So he'll be able to maintain high rage longer than most seasons with this ability that he has here against debuff Purification. So those are the sort of mutants that can apply debuffs regularly. Then the next category are going to be mutants that prevent Tenacity. So Tenacity is the node that lets the defenders shrug debuffs, right? So there's 4 champions that prevent this extremely well. So the first one that I want to talk about here is Omega Red. So Omega Red, he is a champion that's very underrated in Battlegrounds, and that is because a lot of people do believe that he needs the recoil masteries. He does not need the recoil masteries, and this season he's not going to need them at all for sure. Once you basically have 10 spores on the opponent, they just cannot purify anything. They can still cleanse, so you won't be able to do cleanse champions. But here, every death spore lowers the opponent's armor rating and reduces their chance to purify debuffs by 10%. So with Victory Track, you'll only need 3 spores, and on the circuit, you'll only need 5 spores, and you'll be able to turn off Tenacity. So that's a good way to prevent the node there. He won't be as quick as the big prowess dealing big prowess champions like Sunspot or Dust, but he is still a quick champion enough on his own with once you can get the degen up, and if you have that Mr. Sinister relic. And then the next two, because they kind of go together, is the two Storms. So Storm and Storm Pyramid X. So Storm I don't have as a 7-star, but she has a really nice ability when her prowesses get purified. Sorry, her debuffs get purified. She gets 2 prowess buffs, so she's able to stack up so many prowess buffs with her abilities plus the node. She doesn't have too many debuffs that she can land on her own, right? It's only really stun, so she won't be able to land. Well, she can do shocks as well, actually, from her specials, but she doesn't really have too many access to too many debuffs. And then Storm Pyramid X, or by the way, so both of them can prevent, they turn stun debuffs into passive stuns if they get purified, by the way. I didn't say that, I meant to say that. Yeah, if a skill opponent purifies a stun debuff, if it's replaced with a passive stun. So this one only works against skill champions, OG Storm, but I believe Storm Pyramid X works against anyone. Yeah, so Storm Pyramid X sort of has the advantage here. She'll have better range because her passive stun works against anyone, any class. However, OG Storm only works against skill champions. And then this is a nice one. I didn't know this ability until I've just read it. When she's in Lightning Tempest, her special can actually reduce the opponent's defensive power rate by 25%. For each prowess, and you can stack up lots of prowess with this in this season, with just from the node and then also from Storm's own abilities, just gaining parts of power. So she'll be able to easily reduce the opponent's combat power rate during her special 2, even more than normal, right? Because she'll have extra prowesses, and they will have extra power than normal because of the power creep node. So she could be a really nice quick option as well for you if you have Storm Pyramid X or an OG Storm as well. They'll both do pretty well. And then the last one, of course, in this category is Bishop. So Bishop, similarly to Storm Pyramid X, can just turn stun debuffs into passive stuns whenever they get purified. You'll see. Also, each time the opponent purifies a debuff, they instantly receive energy damage. Skill champions receive a passive stun. So this is the same as OG Storm, but anyone who purifies a debuff, they get energy damage. So even if it's something like, I don't know, a weakness from the Resonate Mastery, if they purify that, they'll take energy damage. So, or if they purify one of Bishop's Incinerates, from his special 1. So Bishop is going to be really nice. Again, like the Storms, he doesn't really have too much access to debuffs. But he would have so many prowesses of his own that I don't think it'll matter too much really, and just being able to turn off Tenacity is a great ability. So that's the anti-Tenacity champs. Alright guys, so the last category I want to talk about here for attackers is just champions that don't rely on debuffs, because this is a meta that will punish you if you use champions that have lots of debuffs because of the Tenacity node. Even champions that, even when you just stun, there's a chance for that stun to just be shrugged off. So champions that don't rely on debuffs are gonna work really well. They're gonna, especially if you don't have to rely on stunning at all, parry stunning. So the first champion that comes to mind when you think of no debuffs for me, of course, is Juggernaut. So Juggernaut, like he's kind of becoming a problem in Battlegrounds. He's just there's not many champions he can't counter, unfortunately, and there's not many metas he can't counter. There's some, but well, I mean, there are very easy ways to turn him off, but he's just a wrecking ball, and he's going to be a wrecking ball this season again. There's nothing that's going to be able to stop him node wise. It's only the champions themselves that will be able to stop him in a bad matchup. So Juggernaut is just going to cook again. I think Absorbing Man as well. He's another champion that doesn't rely on debuffs or parry stunning at all. So he could be a decent attacker for you should you have him ranked up. Continuing with the Mystic theme, America Chavez, she also doesn't really need to parry stun too much. She can get a heavy stuns off. Those are passive stuns, so don't need to worry about those getting purified. I know a lot of people have Bullseye. I myself have a rank 3 Bullseye, so he doesn't really rely on debuffs. He has instant bleeds, they're not debuffs. And he doesn't really have to parry too much. He has a very intercepty playstyle, and you can intercept get a counter attack from your specials. You don't need to parry too much with him. Another champion you never need to parry with is Ghost. I have an Ascended Ghost. She probably will make her way into the deck just because of her way to ignore Tenacity and ignore the power creep node. She won't have to worry about any of the nodes. It's just going to be a nodeless season for Ghost, really. So she could definitely do a lot of things there. Gallon as well, a lot of cosmics. Well, not a lot of cosmics, but he's probably the cosmic that relies on debuffs the least because he's so buff heavy. If you stack up those harvest buffs and get into your harvest, throw up a big special 1 or special 2. I'll probably stick to the special 1 because the special 2 has incinerates with it, so those can get purified. But he could definitely make a return to some people's decks for sure. And another one who's just got buffed, another cosmic, is Gladiator. So all his stuff is now passive. His Intimidate used to be a debuff, but now it's a passive. So previously, before he was buffed, he wouldn't have worked for this as well. But now that all his stuff is passive, except his debuffs, I think they're like the cold snaps and stuff and incinerates. I think they're debuffs. So he probably won't work as well as I was thinking. Yeah, because they are debuffs actually, the incinerates and the cold snaps. But yeah, he could still work, and still like his special punishing and his basic attacks, they still do a decent amount of damage anyway, without having to rely on parry really. And then the next cosmics, again, we'll continue with the cosmics for a bit. So we've obviously got Hulkling and Hercules, so they're two champions that speak for themselves. Hercules, his Intimidate won't be as reliable. Sorry, his Infuriate, and Hulkling's Intimidate, they won't be as reliable, but I don't really play with them, those. Don't rely on them too much, since you won't be able to this season, of course. Especially on track, it's not a massive tenacity, so you probably could land them most of the time. But yeah, those guys are going to cook. They're not going to be able to have to rely on debuffs too much, of course. Another one is Human Torch. So Human Torch, if you activate his pre-fight, all of his incinerates are Nova Flames. They're passives. He doesn't really have to rely on debuffs too much. He is sort of a parry 3-hit combo champ, but you can do a lot of heavy countering with him. It would cost a little bit more block damage, and so yeah, he definitely is worth putting in the deck, I think, and for reasons I'll explain later. Kate Bishop, of course, is another champion that comes to mind when you think of no debuffs, because of course her cold snaps are passive cold snaps, and also her stun when she has her evade charge is a passive stun. So pretty much all her stuff is passive. So she'll be able to work around tenacity and power creep in that way. She's going to be obviously an MVP for a lot of people, and yeah, it's just going to be no exception this season. Similar with Juggernaut. And the last one I'll talk about here is Odin. So Odin, shout out to Trappy. He recently watched his video on his rank 2 Odin. He's so powerful, man. He sort of relies a bit on parry to get his Odin charges with the heavy attack, but if you can weave in heavy attacks other ways without having to rely too much on parry, he's a really strong character. Once you get that special 1 and the special 2 off, he won't really obviously he won't benefit from the mutant node, but he can definitely work around without really applying too many debuffs. So that's the last one I'll talk about for that category. And then finally, I'll just talk about champions that you might want to avoid this season, because there's a lot of champions that you might normally have in your deck, but they might not be as powerful this season for various reasons. So the first one I want to talk about, well, this is I was debating whether I'd put him in this category, but it's actually Future Ant-Man. I don't know, because I feel like a lot of the mutants will be attackers. There really won't be many mutant defenders. Obviously, you can take other things apart from mutants. But, if you don't get that what's it called, the disintegration debuff, there's a chance that can fail, and then your special 2 is a lot weaker. I feel like this guy's going to be much better on defense this season, not as an attacker. I might be wrong, but that's just my initial thoughts for now. And then there's obviously a lot of champions that are very debuff happy. Captain America Infinity War is a very parry heavy champion. Similarly, in a way with Magneto, Gore is not going to be good this season, I don't think, because once he gets his different shadow magic buffs, he's going to be applying debuff after debuff after debuff. A lot of those will get purified, and he doesn't really benefit from purification at all. And then also Quicksilver, he's very debuff reliant. Not as much as other science champions maybe. But if that slow gets up and it gets purified, I don't think there's a way to get it back up. I might be wrong. Also, someone who's a very strong science champion. You can see there's a bit of science theme at the moment in this category, because it is a very anti-science season. Scorpion, I don't see him being very powerful. A lot of his personal debuffs will get purified. There's a chance his Petrify even gets purified, and that's a lot of, that's where his regen comes from, and that's where he can get his regen reversal as well. So I don't really see Scorpion being too effective here this season. Shuri, I put in this category. Her shocks can get purified, and that makes it a bit harder to get her heaps of her critical shocks up. Because she needs plenty of shocks to get more critical shock charges, and she's just going to be a slow champion in general for the season. I don't really see her doing too much offensively. She could be a good defender though, for sure. Silk, I think can work, but I'm just not sure if she'll be able to actually heavy stun in and actually land the heavy before her stun from the heavy gets purified. I have to test that out. If someone knows, let me know in the comments. I don't think it will be a problem, but it might be. So she's definitely a danger. She's a watch. I might put her in the deck star, but if she doesn't work, she might have to make her way out actually. Spider-Ham, I don't really see being. I see me being more of a defender, and I'll talk about why later in the video. But he attack offensively, a lot of his power things can get shrugged, and that's pretty much 90% of his damage source, right? Maybe not that much, but if those debuffs get purified and there's the champion get extra power, obviously he has a taunt inbuilt, then that can help. But yeah, he definitely be a lot weaker than he normally is. And then there's also other science champions like Titania and Void. I think Spot could do okay because he's not parry reliant, and I think the extra power from the power creep node could help him, because just being able to just get into untouchable, you get plenty of more ruptures. The small one or two ruptures getting purified isn't a big deal as long as he can get to a special 2. So I think I will start with Spot in the deck, but because I think he'll do alright because he's not parry reliant, but I might be wrong about that. Then Titania, I don't see being too effective just because he has so many debuffs, like even more than Spot, I'd say. Maybe not more than Spot, but quite a lot. Yeah, I'm not, but again, I'm not a massive Titania player. And then Void as well. It's very easy for Void's debuffs to get purified, and similar to Shuri, he's just on the slower side. And the last one in this category is Werewolf by Night, because he can apply so many rupture debuffs, and yeah, it is a very particular rotation. It definitely could work for sure, but yeah, like a lot of these champions will be able to work, I think, in a way, but it won't be nearly as effective, and you're much better off using the mutants or the champions that don't rely on debuffs for sure. So these are not champions to absolutely avoid completely. I wouldn't say remove them from your deck, but just keep an eye on them. Don't expect the world from them for sure. But that's gonna conclude the attacker portion of this video. Alright guys, now let's talk about the defenders. So this is going to be definitely a shorter section than the attacker section, because we're typically wanting to look for more attackers, because a lot of the defenders just do well every season. Maestro, Onslaught, Serpent, Sasquatch, Thing, Nick Fury. These are Future Ant-Man. These are champions that just do well most seasons because they're just good defenders in general. And there's some champions that are really good attackers in general, like like champions I mentioned before, like Juggernaut, Storm, Sunspot, Titania. But yeah, so but there are going to be some defenders that are certainly more friendly, more favorable to these nodes. Power Creep, Tenacity, Ebb and Flow Knockdown. So firstly, we'll talk about champions that can purify or cleanse. So obviously Atuma's right up there when you think of Purify. He can really only purify those debuffs when he gets stunned. So if you can avoid stunning him, he won't be too bad to fight. Baron Zemo is going to be a very interesting one because he has that cleanse inbuilt, and no one can avoid that at all. And once you get rooted, if you don't throw a special, you can get really screwed if you get bled, and those permanent bleeds can tick you down. There's obviously ways around that. Killmonger, of course, he likes getting debuffs on him, especially non-damaging debuffs. He gets tons of power from that. He's just one of those other ones that's just good defender in general. Jabari Panther is is a really nice cleanse champion as well. Probably won't be a amazing defender. Nothing more than normal, but it's definitely one to mention. Obviously, Korg's up there when it comes to Purify. When he's awakened, he gets that chance to Purify with his rock shields up. And obviously, the higher the sig, the higher the chance to Purify. You know, up to 70% chance to Purify. And that's basically inflated with the Tenacity nodes. He has an even higher chance to Purify. It's basically a guaranteed Purify with Korg here at max sig. And then we've also got Kingpin. So Kingpin is a great chance to Purify. I think it's 60% chance any debuff, and set it into Rage. Yeah, 60% chance to Purify. So I think with a 25% Tenacity, I think they do add on to each other. So I think it's an 85% chance. I believe, I might be wrong, but I think they do add on to each other. So he's going to be able to Purify literally anything that comes in as a defender. And then also we've got Mole Man. So he also has he has pretty much 100% chance to Purify unless you're using a mutant. But against mutants, he has a 25% chance. But he has an extra chance to Purify now with the extra Tenacity. So yeah, he could definitely be. He won't be the best defender. He probably won't be an amazing attacker either. I might be wrong, but a lot of those bleeds that he has offensively could get purified. But those are the main like purifiers and shruggers. Obviously, Nick Fury as well can shrug all his debuffs when he enters second life, and that does count as a purifier, I think, for power creep. But the next sort of defenders I want to talk about are ones that have inbuilt sort of protection or immortality. So these are champions that can just reduce a lot of the special damage that these mutants will have by either getting regen, or they have protection, or they have, you know, immortality or something like that, some sort of damage reduction. So this is going to be the most interesting category, I think, of defender. So Ant-Man Future Ant-Man, in his sig ability, when he would lose more than 10% of his max health from a single source other than a special 3, he reduces the damage to 10% of his max health and gets a self-repair buff, healing up to 5% of his max health. So that would be really good for countering. Obviously, you're not going to be using mutants against this guy, but he is great for, in case. He's a good trap if you are fighting someone who's drafted a lot of mutants, for sure. Then Emma Frost is an interesting one. So when Emma Frost is awakened, basically what she can do is she can, if she takes more than a percentage of her health in one hit, she just activates her diamond form, which is basically her super safe form, and she reduces the damage. She goes to diamond form for 3 seconds, and so that can just seriously reduce the damage from a special attack, when it otherwise probably would have killed her. And then Hercules as well. Hercules, you know, everyone knows Hercules has that immortality at the end. He won't be the most amazing defender, but you know that, and also his Intimidate can. I keep saying Intimidate. His Infuriate can definitely slow people down. One interesting, really interesting one is Hulk. So I don't really see Hulk. I haven't mentioned Hulk today, but Hulk, I don't think he'll be the best attacker, because once he gets into the Gamma Rays, a lot of his physical vulnerabilities could get purified, including the one from the Special 3. But if you get lucky, he could be fine, of course. But as a defender, if he loses more than 10% of his max health, he does get 5 Fury passives. And of course, when Hulk is awakened, once he enters Gamma Rage, he does go unstoppable. See, mine's sig 40, so he goes unstoppable for 2 seconds. So that's a very easy way to catch someone who's you know, a bit off guard and is just throwing specials, and then accidentally activates Hulk's Gamma Rays and they get smacked in the face. Of course, Iron Man Infinity War is going to be a great defender. He's always a great defender, but you know, he has that regen right at the end, at the 15%, and gets those armor up buffs, so that can really stop someone, you know, knocking him out with one special. If it gets him down to 15%, gets him into that last phase of his abilities. Same thing with Kindred. You know, he has that safeguard at the end, that root. And then also, sort of with the Mystic theme, not quite as strong as Kindred, but it is Mephisto. So Mephisto, there's not really many mutants that are Incinerate immune. You know, there's like Sunspot, who inflicts Incinerates anyway, and like Apocalypse, but he doesn't start Incinerate immune. There's also Iceman, I guess, but Mephisto is immune to Cold Snap. So there's not really many strong mutants that are Incinerate immune. He could be a really solid defender, I think, if you have a Mephisto. And of course, when he hits 30% health, he has that regen, gets him up to 60%. So he won't be able to get one shot by a special, unless he's already consumed all of those soul charges. And then the next one here is going to be, of course, Nick Fury. I've already mentioned him. He has that second life that can save him from anything. No one can stop that second life. Obviously, some champions can prevent it, like Danny Moonstar and Penny Parker and Toad, but the 95% of the champions have to deal with 2 whole lives. And then Sasquatch, of course, he's always a great defender, but he also has those rage stacks reducing special damage. Not just special damage, sorry, all damage. Here's his wrath. Sorry, his rage that turns into wrath, and each rage does reduce all incoming damage except for special 3s by 5% per stack, and so those can stack up pretty highly until it goes into wrath. And then Spider-Ham is one that I mentioned earlier as someone who won't be the amazing attacker, but I think he could be an alright defender. He really is very low health, so I don't expect too much from Spider-Ham, but he does have a way to reduce special damage when he has Spider Nonsense. You can see every stack of Spider Nonsense reduces degen effect potency by 15% and passively reduces damage taken during the opponent's special attacks by 5%. So he can get up to 10 Spider Nonsense, which can reduce special damage by up to 50%. And not only that, he also has the taunt on a special one, and he's just a kind of annoying champ to fight in general if you don't know what you're doing. So that's a semi-potential good option, but again, he doesn't have much health, so don't expect too much from Spider-Ham. And the last one in this category is going to be Thing. So Thing, of course, he has that automatic protection whenever he gets, whenever someone uses 300% more of their attack rating with a basic attack, or 300% more of their attack rating with a special attack, which will happen a lot with these mutants that have lots of prowess. He just activates that protection. And if he's high Sig, he has plenty of rock stacks that can get up to 100%. If he has 20 rock stacks, which he won't, but if he has at least 10 rock stacks and max Sig, that's at least 90% protection. And really not many champs can get that sort of protection. He's kind of unique in that way, so that's definitely a potential. Well, he's usually a good enough defender, but yeah, definitely a good option against those pesky mutants. And then the last category is really a lot of the Mystic class, because this is a very unfriendly meta for science champions. Champions that really are reliant on debuffs. Scorpion, Captain America, Infinity War, Silk, Spot, sort of Titania, Void. They're not going to be as effective, and so that elevates the Mystic class as defenders. Champions like Absorbing Man, like Doctor Doom. It would be harder to turn off Doom's aura if the debuffs get shrugged. Ebony Maw, Kindred, of course, Longshot, even Mangog, Man-Thing. There's again, I talked about who was it? Who has poisons? No, so I was thinking of Mephisto. Similarly with Man-Thing, there's not many mutants that are poison immune. There's pretty much Dust and Iceman, and that's it, I think. There might be a few others, but there's not many that are mutants that are poison immune. So Man-Thing could be an alright defender, and also has a way to reduce damage with his swamp armor. Takes no extra damage from crits, so there's an option there. Rintra, Mojo, Sasquatch, heck, even Spider-Man Supreme, sort of. Yeah, there's a lot of definitely potential for the Mystic class to be a stronger defensive unit this season because of the weaker nature of science attackers this season. But yeah, that's going to do it for the defenders for this season upcoming. Let me know what you guys think. Hopefully I've sort of gotten the ball rolling with what you want to think about for your decks this upcoming season. But now let's get onto the Masteries. Alright guys, I'm on Art Main now, so I'm going to be showing you my most likely battleground setup, my mastery setup for BGS, as you see the title, BGS 18 week 1 to 2. You can see here my points used are 60 out of 59, and that's because I do have 60 points. For many years I had 59, but then we were able to get a 60th point from Necropolis, so I do have 60 points to use, as do a lot of people. Anyone who's done Necropolis will have 60 points to use. And so I'll quickly walk through my mastery setup, and then I'll end the video for you guys. So offense is pretty standard. It's probably weaker than normal. I've just got the normal, the road to precision and cruelty, if you will. I've got 3 points in despair. I was debating whether I wanted despair, because this is the science based node, and your debuffs are not supposed to stick. You want to assume that they don't stick, and so they do still reduce regen. But I was unsure if I wanted this. There were definitely other ways I could have gone, but I do have 3 points in despair because it is still just such a strong mastery, and it will help your defenders as well against attackers. If you're having someone like you know, Havoc or Null as defenders. And then I've just got 1 point deep wounds because I'm on the road to Assassins. Assassins will help just finish off these opponents who are down. This is really, I had a few extra points. This is where I've put into Assassins. I definitely could have gone other ways, but this is where I put it for now. And then that's going to be the attack setup for now. Just 20 offense setup, 20 points there. You can see I haven't put any in Glass Cannon, haven't put any in Courage. Definitely no recoils for this meta. It's not a recoil friendly meta. But normally I would have 5 points in deep wounds, but because yeah, most of my skill champions will be defenders, I've just got the 1 point deep wounds. I don't see myself using many bleeders on offense apart from Archangel. And then defense, this is the normal, very normal defense setup with, of course, 5 and 5 stand your ground. This is the road, the 15 points you need to get willpower. So I've got just 1 point in willpower, and I've got 3 points in inequity. This is a great mastery to run for Battlegrounds because you do passively reduce any enemy attack by 6% for each debuff they're currently suffering, up to a max of 36% reduction. So again, champions like you're fighting Havoc, you're fighting Photon, you're fighting other champions that have lots of debuffs they put on you, they seriously reduce your attack. I was debating putting 1 point in Resonate. I'm going to be making a video on whether it's worth running Resonate, whether it's worth the putting the debuff on the opponent to reduce their attack, but on the other side they do get free willpower healing. So I've left Resonate off for now. But that's the defense. These defense trees are 19 points there, and they've got 21 points in proficiency. So that's still pretty evenly spread out. So 20, 19, 21. That's just how it turned out. I didn't try to aim that way. So I've got 3 points in parry, of course. 5 out of 5 limbo. You wanted your stuns to last as little as possible. For your defenders, dexterity just 1 point you need. 3 out of 3 stupefy, just because if your parries do land, you want them to land. You want it to be as long as possible. 5 out of 5 Mystic Dispersion, of course, and that's because of what I talked about. The Mystic Defenders, they're going to be much more powerful this season than normal. And then the main thing I don't normally run is Pacify. So this is a node that I'm running because of the Tenacity node. So the Tenacity node in track has a 25% chance to activate. This will reduce the enemy ability accuracy by 30% for the duration of the stun. Now, I'm not sure if that means 30% of 25%, which would be about 17%. I'm not sure if that means, I don't think it turns it off completely, but I'll definitely have to test it out. I think it is more a multiplication thing though. I think it will turn a 25% chance to stun into about a 17% chance to stun, but that still can be a significant difference. And I think this is a very efficient way to use your mastery points, rather than putting them into I don't know, Glass Cannon, rather than putting him as deep wounds or maxing out assassins. I think this is a much smarter way to distribute points. Putting just getting the 1 in Petrified to get the 3 points in Pacify. This will get you an extra 30% ability accuracy reduction when they're stunned. So this will mean that Tenacity will proc less. Obviously, it always seems like it procs all the time, but this definitely will help it reduce that chance. So that's going to do it for the masteries, and that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you guys liked about this video. I'm definitely going to be doing similarly a video for week 3 to 4, and then also future seasons as they arrive. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.